Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this IES webinar, The Value of Registration for Land Condition Professionals. I'm really excited to be here to talk to IES members and early career professionals from both the Institution of Environmental Sciences and the Ireland Brownfield Network today. I'm going to be talking about the charterships and registrations available at the IES, which are the Registered Environmental Practitioner, the Registered Environmental Technician, and our two charterships, the Chartered Environmentalist and the Chartered Scientist. So it's going to be a whirlwind tour of all of these, but don't worry, there will be time for questions at the end. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel within the next week or so, so do keep an eye out for that. So after my presentation, you're going to have the chance to hear from a fellow land condition professional, Stephanie Mailer, who held CM status, to talk about her experience and journey. And we will then also hear from Roger Clark about the Specialist in Land Condition Register, or SiLC, and how the SiLC affiliate scheme can support you in achieving both chartership and SiLC registration. At the end of the presentations, you'll have the chance to ask questions. So please do put these in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen at any point during the presentations, and these will then be asked on your behalf later on. And if any of those questions are for a particular person, please do write that in the question. Just before we kick off, I want to hand over to Rebecca McIlwain, Chair of the Ireland Brownfield Network's Early Career Network, to say a few words. Rebecca, over to you.
Thanks very much. I just want to mention the Ireland Brownfield Network very briefly. The IBN has been running for almost 10 years now. It's a network that's completely free to join, and it's open to everyone with an interest in brownfield redevelopment in Ireland. If you're interested in learning more about the IBN or getting involved with this work, you can find out more information on our website, or you can connect with us via LinkedIn. This year, we've launched the Early Career subgroup of the IBN. That's open to all students, graduates, and early career professionals who are working in the area of brownfield redevelopment or want to get into that area. The aim of that subgroup really ultimately is to encourage professional qualifications with relevant bodies, such as the IES. So I just want to say a massive thank you to the IES for running this webinar today, and a really big thanks to our speakers today for sharing their experiences and their knowledge in this area. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Rebecca. Okay, amazing. So I'll kick off with the first presentation. So just a bit about charterships and registration. So they are a voluntary means of demonstrating your professionalism, and they involve being held to account by your peers for your abilities and adherence to ethical standards. They are competency-based and focus on knowledge, skills, and behaviours, and they are a reflective process on your work experience to date. So chartership itself is a uniquely British concept awarded by the Privy Council, whose purpose is to approve the standards and give external oversight. You can have chartered companies, organisations, or individuals. For chartered organisations, like the Chartered Institute of Waste Management, the members would all be chartered members. But in the case of the IES, we don't have our own chartership. It's actually held by two external organisations that license the IES to award them. So for the Chartered Environmentalist, or CM, it's the Society for the Environment. And for the Chartered Scientist, or CSci, it's the Science Council. And there's recognition within the professional sector that chartership is typically a qualification that people work towards after graduating. However, there are increasing opportunities for professional qualifications before chartership, like the Registered Environmental Practitioner, RMP, or the Registered Environmental Technician, RMTech, which I'll be talking about during this presentation. So why become chartered or registered? Becoming chartered or registered creates a point of difference between you and your colleagues or competitors. It provides proof that you're a competent expert, it enhances your professional status, and it's also proof of the quality of your skills. It's independently verified by other professionals in a peer review environment, and it shows that your skills, professional attitude, competencies, ethics, and demonstrates these to both your employers and clients. This is important because some clients may actually request a certain number of chartered individuals or companies, so it can help companies win work. And it can sometimes also be the case that the most interesting work goes to the people with the most experience. Becoming chartered or registered also provides evidence of your continued professional development and ongoing learning through an audited process. And it can improve your career prospects and employability as well as promotion opportunities. Although being a member of a professional body is one way of demonstrating your competence, different professional bodies have different entry requirements. So Chartership is a well-established system for demonstrating your competence above and beyond membership. Registered professionals and technicians are newer than charterships, and so their reputation is still being established. But being a registered professional is a fantastic step on the way to chartership and demonstrates your commitment to your career and to the sector as a whole. So this is from our most recent salary survey of our members, which shows the different average salaries of both our non-chartered members and the average salaries of those with SiSci and CM qualifications, as well as those who hold both. And this really just illustrates how chartership can support your career goals and progression. So in terms of thinking about which professional registration might be right for you, this slide actually maps out our membership levels compared with the different registrations available. So as you can see, CM and SiSci map to the fellowship and member rate. They are not hierarchical, but are an equivalent level. RMP is typically a step on the road to chartership, and RMTech can also be a step on the road to chartership, but is also a destination in its own right, as its focus is more on the technical aspect of work, such as sampling and site investigations. So when deciding which registration might be right for you, it can be quite challenging because there are many available for environmental professionals, and it really depends on your motivations and experience to know which would be best suited to your professional experience and career aspirations. In terms of the chartership, at the very top level, CM is about the application of sustainability and technical knowledge to environmental practice, whereas SiSci is about the application of scientific knowledge to, in our case, environmental practice, although in the broader context, SiSci isn't always about environmental practice. Each chartership is given its own flavour by the awarding body, so in our case, SiSci is more focused on the environmental aspects. And the reason we hold these two charterships is that we feel that these two in combination recognise the skills of our membership. So this slide shows the different registrations and how they align with the qualifications and credit framework of England, Wales and Northern Ireland. So you can see that CM and SiSci are at level 7, same as a master's degree, RMP at level 5 and RMTech at level 3. It should be noted that if you have a master's degree, this doesn't necessarily mean that you're currently working at a master's level. Master's degrees do provide the theoretical background to support this level of working, but chartership, on the other hand, can demonstrate that you are currently working at a master's level as it focuses on your knowledge, skills, and behaviour. And this slide shows how the different registrations align with different levels of qualification in the national framework of qualifications for Ireland. So you can see it's slightly different to what those that we hold in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, with RMTech at level 5, RMP at level 6 and the charterships at level 9. So as I mentioned earlier, we are licensed to award charterships by two organisations, the Society for the Environment for CM and the Science Council for SiSci. Joining one of the charterships therefore means that you're joining a wider community around these organisations. And these organisations provide oversight of the qualification as well as supporting services. The Science Council is the bigger organisation in terms of registrants and turnover, and it works in cross-cutting issues for science, working with workforce data as well as looking at the future of scientific careers, and it has membership right across all the different scientific disciplines and healthcare as well. Society for the Environment, on the other hand, is an organisation that the IES helped found, and it has a bigger influence over the development and standards of CM. Professional bodies are more focused on the environment that fall under the Society for the Environment, obviously, and run a series of events that may be more relevant to environmental scientists. They also do a certain amount of work in the area of environmental policy. It should be noted as well that whichever chartership you pursue, it can be transferred within the body under these umbrella organisations. So this slide is just giving some information about the different splits between the different charterships by specialism. And you can see highlighted in purple is the land condition specialism. So it can give you a bit of a context about which chartership is favoured. So as you can see here, and across all of our specialisms, CM is the most common, but land condition in particular has quite a big proportion of seat size compared to some of our other specialisms. And there's always a proportion that hold both as well. So why become chartered or registered through the IES? There are three main things that distinguish the IES from other professional bodies. The first of those is support. We have lots of guidance to support our members in achieving chartership. In particular, this summer, we were delighted to release additional tailored guidance for land condition professionals undergoing CM qualification. And this was developed by a working group of chartered land condition professionals and is designed to provide specific support for the sector on how to demonstrate the various competencies for that particular specialism. We also offer a range of workshops to support candidates, which I'll talk about in a minute, and we provide a free mentoring service for specific streams for achieving chartership and registrations. And this mentoring service connects you with people who've already done these qualifications to support you through the process. The second thing is speed. It can take up to 18 months to complete the process in other organisations, but we recognise that some of our members might need to do chartership quickly, whether for a bid or for pressure at work around a promotion. So we have regular assessment panels, roughly once a month, to capture second interviews and self-guided candidates. And all of our interviews are now remote, which makes it a lot easier to schedule in, and it's also good in terms of climate and carbon emissions. The third of those is rigor. We've done this process for many, many years, and we're one of the most active members in terms of recruitment of new CMs and CSIs. We've supported hundreds of candidates through the process, and we've trained many assessors to ensure high but fair standards of assessment. A number of our trustees are or have been auditors for the Science Council or the Society for the Environment, so we have a really good idea of what these standards are across the full membership bodies, and we make sure that we are always equal or exceed those standards. So now I'm going to talk a bit about the different routes to chartership. So we currently offer two different routes, the workshop route and the self-guided route. The self-guided is if you're feeling confident after reading all the guidance on the website, then you can complete it yourself. We provide an information pack on how to do this on our website. This is the least popular route for us. We find around 5% of CMs do it this way and around 30% of CSIs, although partly this is because our workshops for CSIs are newer than the CM one. In terms of chartership, from when we've talked to our members, we find that there can be certain obstacles to achieving chartership, whether it's lack of time or uncertainty on what's involved, or just kind of prioritizing other work and fitting it in within your workload. So at the IES, we aim to support members to overcome these obstacles. We share as much information as possible about charterships, but always happy to answer questions. And we also work to help with creating the opportunities to actually complete the application. And we find that the workshops are really good for this, for putting time aside to just get the qualification done. So in terms of the process of becoming chartered, all processes begin with a written application. This is the report stage, which is framed around key competencies, and you have to write a certain amount for each different competence. And then for CM, you need to have a professional interview, which is around 30 to 50 minutes, with two practicing chartered members with the chartership you're applying for. So it's like a peer review process. And sometimes this is also needed for CSI, but not all the time. You have to pass both stages, and then you also need to provide a long form CV. After you have achieved chartership, you do need to submit evidence of ongoing learning, recording all of your CPD annually, and this is audited to make sure there is a good balance of activities which are professionally relevant and at the right level. So in terms of the workshop, we've got two. We've got our CM in a day and CSI Accelerated. The latter name is more accurate because you can't achieve the whole chartership in a day, but it does massively speed up the process. So candidates prepare around 20 hours before the workshop. They finalise the report on the day in the workshop, and then they have their interview the next day if required. It really expedites the process. Even if the candidates have to work on the report after the workshop, it really just gives a framework that I was talking about and deadlines for the process. Feedback from candidates is that they really enjoyed the workshop, interacting with the facilitator and other workshop attendees, and found that the reflective process was really valuable. It should also be noted that we really don't let you fail. If you don't pass your report or interview, you will receive several rounds of feedback, mentoring, and advice on how to get the further experience you need in a particular area or skill. we really do to support you to get this chartership in place. And these next two slides, I'm not going to go into in much detail, just kind of outlines the difference between CM and CSI. So as you can see, the emphasis is the main difference here, CM being sustainability, CSI being science, and then there's some slight difference in prices, and then also just in the application process. As I mentioned, interviews aren't always required for CSI, but they always are CM. And then in terms of the competencies, again, it's that difference in terms of the focus of the subject knowledge, CM being sustainable development and CSI being existing and emerging science. In the latter half of the competencies, the two charterships are more similar, but the main difference is at those top competencies, which is why some of our members do both. So I'll just talk briefly about the Registered Environmental Practitioner. So this is a new registration that was introduced earlier this year by the Society for the Environment, and it's aimed at early career professionals. So those who don't yet have the experience to be eligible for chartership, but are looking to demonstrate their professional competences, skills and expertise and show their commitment to career development. So this is for England, Wales and Northern Ireland is at level 5, so equivalent to a foundation degree. And this should also be paired with 1 year's full-time professional experience after graduating. It examines similar competencies to CM, but the level expected of candidates is of those with slightly less experience. So, for example, where with CM, you must demonstrate your ability to set strategies and objectives, RMP assesses your implementation of and adherence to strategic approaches. So you can see that there's just that slightly different focus. There's then the Registered Environmental Technician, also aimed at early career professionals, but this is at level 3 and is more looking at those working in technical areas such as sampling and site investigation. As I mentioned earlier, RF Tech can be a step on the route to chartership, but it's also a destination in its own right. It's about, level 3, which is A-level level, and you also need a minimum of 2 years professional experience. And this is an assessed through a report. And you can read more about the benefits of getting this here in terms of enhanced deployability, recognition of technical expertise, etc. So finally, I'll just talk a bit about the support that we offer at the IES. So as I've already mentioned, the support that we offer really stands the IES out from the crowd. Our workshops have just 5 candidates, so everyone gets lots of attention and interaction with our facilitator. We have great communication with candidates in the process, and a huge amount of presentation guidance, preparation guidance is available, including the tailored guidance, which I mentioned. We also provide Chartership hot seat webinars, which allow you to get advice from our range of experienced assessors. In addition to the bespoke support for CM candidates, the IES has a range of additional membership benefits displayed here. So we've got our quarterly journal, which has a range of subjects appealing to all of our 17 specialisms shown there on the screen. We have reports, we have our webinar series, CPD over sandwiches, with regular lunchtime webinars. We currently hold quarterly ones for our land condition professionals. There's discounted events such as the Land Condition Symposium. And then there's our communities, including our land condition communities, which are member-led special interest groups, which help us provide the support that we need for our land condition professionals. So that was a whirlwind tour of everything. I know that was quite a speed to go through. I just wanted to get the main information over to you. As I said, please put your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we can come to these later on. But I'd now like to hand over to Stephanie, who can talk a bit more from her experience of actually becoming chartered. So thanks very much, Stephanie.
No problem. Thank you. Hi everyone, lovely to be here today. I am actually one of those ones that Anthony was talking about that have got the CM and CSI, but what I'll do is take you through a really high level and hopefully not too tedious run through of my career to date and how I think being chartered has supported me in my career development. So I think just to sort of take it right back, I remember quite vividly when I was considering which chartership to go for quite a few years ago now, which one would be suitable for me. So at the time I was working mainly in land condition within a land quality team in a multidiscipline engineering firm. So I was doing all the kind of routine activities, phase 1 desk studies, phase 2 design and execution of site investigation, data analysis, risk assessment for controlled waters, human health, and sort of ground gas, and then supervising and verifying remedial works. So I was drawn to the fact that the IES had a much broader take on sustainable development and environmental issues, and I felt that really aligned to what I was trying to achieve within my role, and also that my role within land condition did actually touch on a number of different technical disciplines to enable you to actually sort of consult holistically. So I quite like that broader view when thinking about chartership. So I think that's why I was drawn to becoming CM with the IES. And when I went through the process of chartership, actually that was also quite an enlightening process for me. I did the one-day workshop. So I was surrounded by people from actually very different disciplines. And I think until that point, I was maybe slightly blinkered around land condition. I didn't have that much exposure to people that were other environmental professionals across other disciplines and sectors, in fact. And so actually that was a really insightful exercise for me, just to kind of help, I suppose, build my wider understanding of the environmental sector. And some of the other kind of technical specialists that were out there, and some of the wider issues. So actually the workshop in itself was a really interesting and insightful experience. So yeah, then obviously when I got chartered, I was really proud to get chartered. It really did boost my confidence. It just helped having that sort of official recognition, I suppose, of my skills. I still have my metal badge that I got way back in the day, so I don't know if you give those out anymore, but yeah, it's still something that I look back on, and I'm really proud that I achieved it. And it's definitely supported me moving forwards. I think in terms of my technical skills, as I said, that increased awareness of and sort of exposure via the IES and the events, as well as through my job, has enabled me to progress my career. So I've moved outside of land contamination now. So I moved from land contamination into environmental health and safety due diligence, transaction advisory, and environmental social governance. I was lucky enough to work on some international development projects, traveling across Africa, over in Senegal, and also projects in quite far-flung places like the South Pacific. And during these times, I was actually working with a number of internationally recognized specialists around international development. So it definitely helped me, having the CM status definitely helped me go into those conversations, just feeling a little bit more confident in myself and my professional judgment. So yeah, that was kind of a nice confidence boost. I think that I've kind of moved onwards now, so I now sit on the sustainability leadership team for our business, and we're growing our sustainability advisory business at the moment, and we have a wide range of skills, from carbon accountants, energy specialists, circularity, management systems, and sustainable operations. And again, that kind of, I have to have a breadth of knowledge really to be able to support my team and have client conversations across sustainability, which is obviously a very wide-ranging topic, and just having the access to the IES learning has definitely helped me in terms of keeping abreast with current trends, just keeping current, understanding the main legislative changes, and actually just having a kind of point of reference as well, outside of the other kind of technical reference information that we have available. So I do keep finding myself returning to the IES as a point of reference and learning. I think one part that particularly resonated with me was the approach to systems thinking around how we tackle these broader issues like climate change, and reading articles like that. So that's something that was available on the IES website. It just helps give you confidence that actually your thinking is aligned to the wider kind of sector good practice, and helps in those client conversations. So I suppose it's definitely supported me with my technical skills and kind of broadening my horizons, helping me have a good awareness of the industry and what the kind of mega trends are. I think that actually another focus area for the IES in terms of the competencies, so as well as your technical development, competencies that are assessed are things like your ability to communicate, your leadership skills, and your management skills. And I would say that actually those competencies are absolutely still as relevant to me now as they were back when I was chartered, and I continue to develop on all of the levels associated with the competencies. So sort of thinking about leadership roles, which I've held. I headed up our due diligence team previously, and now I've moved through my leadership career. I'm actually pursuits director for Arcadis environment business, which means that I handle all of our strategic pursuits. And again, that can be a large multidiscipline framework for an organisation like Homes England, or actually working with our technical specialists on a new offering to market, like around net zero, climate change and climate adaptation. So again, having a really broad knowledge of all of the key trends and actually the key specialists that we need to draw in to support, to actually get an offering to our clients that's relevant, has definitely been, again, enhanced by just having that reference base around the IES. So my most recent role to date is as head of capability for Arcadis. So again, I suppose I continually sort of step back and get a bit broader, and you absolutely don't have to go along this kind of route. But I suppose for me, in terms of being supported by the IES, having a role as head of capability means that I have to support all of our technical teams across our business, which is about 500 strong at the moment, making sure they're aligning their technical need with market need. And so again, that understanding of current trends and future trends is absolutely critical. We're obviously in a very dynamic environment at the moment, with lots of changes coming in associated with sustainability and climate. We've got the new environment bill coming in, and so there's going to be a lot of change. And I feel that having a reference base and a kind of pool of experts, if you like, who also face these challenges, means that there is access to learning that really supports me in my ability to execute my job, especially around the head of capability piece. I should also note that as part of that role, I oversee our graduate programme. So as part of the graduate programme, we kind of focus our graduates on developing the skills that help them get chartered. So actually, the chartership process is very much core to our graduate programme. And that's because we as a business really recognise the benefits of getting our graduates chartered. One other interesting point is that as a pursuit director role, we very often get asked numbers of chartered individuals when we're putting bids in. And so actually it really benefits the organisation that you work for quite often in a competitive environment if you are chartered, because it shows that they have a high level of competency in their staff. So that's a kind of lightning overview of my career. It's really hard to put a value on being chartered, but I think that you can probably see that I think at all key points, the kind of IES and the support it brings has definitely helped me and benefited me in terms of my professional development. I just wanted to touch actually on one last thing. I am a chartership assessor for the CMs, and I thought it might just be useful to kind of give you some handy tips. So I've done it for a little while now, and I love it. It's a brilliant thing to do. I meet some really interesting people. I'm always impressed by the diversity of careers and also the kind of commitment, enthusiasm and passion that everyone that I've met across this sector has. So it's a really enjoyable role for me. And it's my job as an assessor to really just help you and let you be the best that you can be during the interview process. So I know it's quite nerve-wracking. I remember vividly that it was really nerve-wracking, but we're here to support you. I'm not here to trip you up. So I suppose if I could give you any advice, it would be really try not to be nervous. You've come through this process, you've prepared yourself well, have confidence in yourself. Make sure that you have studied all of the competencies, because that's what we interview you against. So you're given a set of competencies by the IES, and just make sure that you have one or two examples that you can easily draw upon if you're asked to explain your experience related to them. And a piece that I think quite often separates the kind of stronger candidates in the field is a really good understanding of the wider picture, systems thinking. So if you look at your role and really understand how it plays to the wider trends in the sector, the wider challenges the client might be facing. I think if you understand how your role fits into that wider context, that would definitely support you in terms of being able to demonstrate competencies. And finally, just enjoy it, because it is a really enjoyable process. It's the start of a really exciting journey. And I think that's it. That's about it from me. I hope that was okay.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. That was really great to hear how you found it valuable for your own career, and really useful tips there. Really appreciate you taking the time for that. That was really great, and to have the
No worries.
personal perspective. So thank you very much. I'd now like to hand over to Roger Clark to talk about SiLC and the SiLC affiliate scheme. So Roger, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to initially talk about the Specialist in Land Condition Register, then move on to the National Quality Mark Scheme, then the National Brownfield Skills Framework, and finally talk about the SiLC affiliate scheme. So first of all, who or what is a SiLC? They're a senior professional, not a company. They have independently been assessed as having a high level of competency in investigation and assessing contamination and other aspects of land condition. They have the skills to interpret, brief, and advise both the public and private sectors. What they're not is necessarily an expert in all fields, and they know when to seek advice from others. The origins of SiLC were in the Urban Task Force, which was set up 23 years ago by John Prescott when he was Deputy Prime Minister. It was chaired by Lord Rogers with the intention of identifying the causes of urban decline and to establish a vision founded on the principles of design excellence, social well-being, and environmental responsibility. The report had 105 recommendations, and SiLC emerged from one of those recommendations. So SiLC has been around since 2000 and was set up to focus on high standards in the land condition sector. What the SiLC qualification does is to provide a third party, which could be a client, an investor, a regulator, and so on, that they are getting land condition advice that is reliable and is competent. Alongside SiLC, we now have a suitably qualified and experienced person under the National Quality Mark Scheme. And I'll talk about the NQMS and SQP on the next slide. Currently, there are 198 SiLCs and 124 SQPs. The NQMS was developed by the National Brownfield Forum, previously called the Land Forum, to provide the equivalent of a kite mark to indicate that reports have been checked for accuracy and quality by an individual that is qualified and suitably experienced. Once they are satisfied that the report is satisfactory and meets the required standard, an SQP makes a formal declaration which is registered by Clare. SiLC have been nominated as the sole organisation that can appoint SQPs, so you can apply to become a SiLC and at the same time become an SQP. The NQMS is referenced in EA planning guidance and supported by the EA Chief Executive. It's also referenced in the EA land contamination risk management web pages. We are seeing increasing take-up across local authorities who are also referencing the NQMS in their planning guidance. And in this respect, there is a map on the Clare website in the NQMS section that indicates which local authorities are referencing it. YALPAG have recently joined the list, which adds some 40 local authorities. And you can see at the bottom of the slide there that there are currently 175 declarations to date made by SQPs. So why bother to register as a SiLC and an SQP? Well, it's an objective demonstration of competency. The SiLC and SQP qualifications have been developed by us, the professionals in our sector. So this is our peers saying, yes, this person knows what they're doing and they are competent to do what they're being paid to do. The SiLC scheme is well respected and has been a long-standing indication of highly capable professionals. The NQMS, on the other hand, focuses mainly on ensuring high standards in planning applications for brownfield sites and to make land contamination issues more streamlined. Planning is not, however, the only regulatory regime to which the NQMS is applicable, and we're currently adding in documentation relevant to permitting. As I said at the beginning, a SiLC is not expected to be an expert in all aspects of land condition. However, they are expected to have an awareness of the other professions. They should nevertheless have a thorough knowledge of their particular area of expertise. This could be hydrogeology, risk assessment, or planning, or more generally, contaminated land. They should be able to effectively collate, analyze, assess, and present data. They should be able to communicate well, both written and verbal, and they should be willing to comply with the SiLC Code of Practice, which can be found on the SiLC website. SiLC is a qualification above chartered. The SiLC Code of Practice is there to ensure that a SiLC is committed to the aims and objectives of SiLC, which are continuous improvement and to uphold the profession's reputation. Once a written application has been submitted, a candidate undertakes an open book exam, followed by an interview by 3 assessors, normally face-to-face, but this year and last year, for obvious reasons, this has been done by video conferencing, and I think that that's how it will go forward. This may seem an onerous process, but it's intended to ensure that the standard of the SiLC register is maintained. Without exception, everyone who achieves SiLC registration says that it was well worth it, and they're very glad they put in the effort. There are 2 or more training days, which we call introduction days, provided by SiLC each year, and there are 2 exam rounds per year. At the end of the exam, there's also an online multi-question module to be taken on the NQMS in order to become an SQP. SiLC hold a conference each year, which we call the annual forum, at which we've got leading speakers from the profession and from regulators on topical, technical, and regulatory issues. Now to talk about the National Brownfield Skills Framework, which some of you may be familiar with under the previous name of the Land Conditions Skills Development Framework. But first, let's look at the origins of the National Brownfield Skills Framework. A Brownfield Skills Strategy was published in 2008 by organisations that became part of the Homes and Communities Agency, which is now Homes England. It recommended the preparation of a Land Conditions Skills Development Framework, which was initially issued in 2009 by SiLC and revised and considerably expanded in 2014, again by SiLC. It's now been jointly adopted by the National Brownfield Forum and renamed the National Brownfield Skills Framework. It's referred to in the NQMS, and it's also referred to in the SQP Declaration of Document Adequacy. The framework has 13 categories of capability, split between generic and technical, which are intended to cover the majority of activities that a person will be involved in. These 13 categories are listed on this slide. There are 5 levels of capability. These range from an initial awareness through becoming proficient to eventually becoming an expert, with these terms being defined on this slide. It's not intended that an individual would be at the same level for all categories that I showed on the previous slide. For example, they could be level 3 in finance and commercialism, but level 5 in one of the technical categories. Please don't try to read this slide. It's just an example of the capability sheets that are in the framework. There are 80 of these sheets to cover the 13 categories of capability and levels 2 to 5. There are no sheets for level 1, as this is a level at which an individual is aspiring to level 2. Most of the categories are more than 1 sheet per level. Each sheet indicates activities, the tasks that an individual should be capable of, and the indicators that they have achieved the task at the required level. These capabilities are basically high-level descriptions of key behaviors, skills, knowledge that underpin effective performance. They define what effective performers actually understand, apply, or demonstrate in most situations, most of the time, to achieve the best results. And they apply to both the public and private sectors. It's expected that at level 1, a practitioner would be in the early learning stages of their career following graduation. A practitioner with the skills and experience necessary for levels 3 or 4, depending on institution, would be capable of applying for chartership. A practitioner operating at levels 4 or 5 would be expected to be capable of applying to become a registered SiLC. Now the SiLC affiliate scheme. This was launched in 2019 and ties together all the things that I've really just been talking about. Its purpose is to assist in achieving chartership and then progress to SiLC and SQP registration based on clear objectives and using the National Brownfield Skills Framework, but also incorporating the requirements of the NQMS and the role of an SQP. Being chartered is a prerequisite of applying for SiLC and SQP registration. So this scheme provides a structured path to guide participants through the process of achieving both. Participants will have a framework within which they are guided to achieve their professional objectives. Note that entry can be at any level, so someone who is already chartered may still be interested in joining the scheme, and in fact, many people who are on the scheme are chartered. Those on the scheme would initially have an advisor appointed by their institutional professional body, as shown on the left-hand side of this slide. Once chartered, they would have a SiLC mentor to assist them up to taking the SiLC and SQP exam. The application for joining the SiLC affiliate scheme should be made to the SiLC Secretariat, and Grace Hawkins at the Secretariat will be very willing to assist you. There's an application guide and an application form on the SiLC website. You'll see on the right-hand side of this slide the capability levels 1 to 5 that I talked about earlier, with a person needing to be generally at 4 in order to be a SiLC. But remember what I said about not needing to be at a particular level in all skills in order to be recognized as generally at that level. Although, of course, you'd need to be at that level in your primary skills. And also remember, you can be at any level to join the SiLC affiliate scheme. Criteria for joining the SiLC affiliate scheme: an applicant must be a graduate member or member of one of the qualifying professional organizations. And I've got a slide coming up which will show which are the qualifying professional organizations. Obviously, an applicant must have a genuine interest in the brownfield sector, and they must be aiming to become a full member of a qualifying professional organization and to join the SiLC register. They need to maintain their commitment to the code of conduct of their professional organization and that of SiLC. There is an annual fee, which is £50 plus VAT, which covers administration, but this includes 20% discount on the attendance fee for the SiLC annual forum. And that's the annual conference that I mentioned on one of the earlier slides. These are the qualifying professional organizations. They're the organizations that support SiLC and have a representative on the SiLC board and the SiLC professional and technical panel. Note that in respect of applying to become a SiLC, you must be chartered, but the professional bodies are not restricted to the list on this slide. Members of the SiLC affiliate scheme will be designated as SiLC affiliates, each with a SiLC affiliate number. This final slide shows some links that might be of interest to you. The bottom corner image shows the front of the SiLC affiliate scheme leaflet. I'd like to also draw your attention to the SiLC affiliate scheme video, which is shown halfway down this slide. This has clips of a number of SiLCs talking about their experiences in the brownfield sector and why they became a SiLC. A link to this video should very shortly be on the SiLC website. Thank you for your attention, everybody.
Thank you so much, Roger. It's really great to hear about SiLC and really useful to see how the SiLC affiliate scheme can provide that framework no matter what level you're at in your career. So I would really recommend everyone taking a look at that and seeing where it could support your career progression. So thanks very much, Roger. So attendees, please do all put your questions in the Q&A function. We're now going to move into the Q&A session of this webinar. And we're joined by Adam, CEO at the IES, who will be able to help out with some of the questions from the IES perspective. So thanks, Adam, for joining. Just have a look in the Q&A box. And it looks like the first one we've got here is from Leo, who said that we mentioned that becoming registered and chartered means that you need to provide evidence of continued learning. Could you expand on this a little, please? And Adam, if you could maybe mention the CPD tool as well. Thank you.
Yes, so it depends on which chartership you're doing, because they've got slightly different requirements. So for CMs, there's a specific question within the competencies that asks about professional development. And what they're looking for really in that competency is evidence that you are currently doing different pieces of CPD, that you're reflecting on it and that you're planning for your future. So the competency needs to cover those. CSI has something quite similar in a question, but it also has an additional requirement that you submit your previous year's CPD record, and that has to be submitted along with your application for chartership. Once you've attained the chartership, you're then required to submit CPD on an annual basis. So you can imagine that something like a degree, you go through your degree, you do your exam at the end of it, and then you can say that you have a BSc or an MSc for the rest of your life, and there's nothing to actually check whether you've kept up your learning. Whereas chartership is a little bit different to that, in that, yes, through a reflective piece, it looks at your abilities at a particular point of your career, but there's then an annual renewal of that. So what we'll be checking on is that you keep on developing as an individual and you keep on learning about the relevant competencies, because the environment field is ever changing in terms of legislation, techniques and science. And so it's very important that you keep your knowledge up to date. Ethne mentioned there are CPD tools. So the IES requirements around CPD for all members is that you do 30 hours, at least 30 hours of CPD a year. There is a quite broad categorization of what we consider CPD to be. So that can be kind of formal learning, training conferences that you attend. But there's also the opportunity to report on any self-directed learning that you do. So, for example, kind of reading about new legislation, reading the IES journal, and also work-based learning. So that's things that you've learned on the job. And really to justify that, you need to do quite a lot of reflection around it to show us genuinely that it was some novel learning. It was something that you haven't done before during the year. And then the final category is about any professional engagements that you have, so any volunteering that you might do on committees, be it the SiLC committee or any of the IES ones.
Amazing, thank you, Adam. Yeah, that was a really great overview. And there's obviously more information on our website as well if you wanted to find out a bit more about those CPD categories and how you can report them. Roger, in terms of SiLC and the SiLC register, you mentioned the National Brownfield Skills Framework and how that maps to Chartership and also the SiLC register. Is there CPD that's also required in terms of maintaining your SiLC register, or is that not relevant for that?
There is indeed, and very much along the lines that Adam has just explained. But SiLC are very flexible with regard to how that CPD can be presented, because it can be the institution CPD, it can be a company CPD, it can be something that the individual themselves, the SiLC themselves has generated. But in addition to that, SiLC do have a template that can be used. just so that we've sort of covered all the possibilities. But yeah, if a SiLC maintains their CPD in conjunction with the requirements of their institution, fine, they don't need to do anything else, they just submit that to SiLC, and that's fine. We don't all the time check all SiLCs to see about CPD. We just do an audit, which is actually taking place at the moment. We just check a certain percentage of people. So if people are doing what they should do in terms of keeping up their CPD, no additional work.
Amazing, thank you, Roger. That's really useful. And I just wonder a final question on, have you had much feedback from the SiLC affiliate scheme and people who've completed it, or are there just people still on it? Have you had any complete the scheme yet? And what's been the key areas of feedback in that area?
No, they're all still on it, to be quite honest, because bearing in mind that the SiLC affiliate scheme can be joined as a graduate. So there's a good number of years of development professionally of that individual before they get to chartership and then get to SiLC. So the main purpose of it is to support people through their careers, give them a framework under which they can progress. So yeah, the answer is nobody's actually gone right the way through the scheme as yet. It's only been in existence a couple of years, so give it a chance.
Great, thank you very much, Roger. And I should mention that the IES is one of the professional bodies that are supporting the SiLC affiliate scheme, and we really recommend that you take a look at that if you're looking to progress to become a registered SiLC, because as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, having that framework is so useful to kind of set aside the time and have the resources that you need there. So it looks like that's all the questions from the attendees for today. I want to thank all of our speakers. Thank you, Roger. Thanks, Stephanie, who had to go, but thank you for her perspective, and thanks, Adam, for coming in with helping with the questions. Finally, I'd like to thank Rebecca from the Ireland Brownfield Network for helping put this webinar together. And just we'd really recommend that if you have any questions, please do get in touch with us. There's loads of information on our website as well that you can access. Thanks so much all for attending, and I hope you found this interesting and informative. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you.